Oh, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. Yet another chance to engage in some historical analysis. It turns out the New York Times Magazine published a poll that it conducted among its readers this past week, in which it asked the question: would you kill baby Hitler if you had the opportunity? Knowing everything that he did, the role that he played in world history, all the blood on his hands, if you had the opportunity to go back to 1889 or so and kill baby Hitler or perhaps prevent him from being born in the first place, would you do it? I think 42% of the respondents said yes, 30% said no, and 28% said not sure. My answer, and believe it or not, this is an easy answer for me to give, is no. Hell no. A resounding no. Here's why. The bottom line is that there's no guarantee that baby Hitler would turn out to be the adult Hitler, the monstrous Hitler, the genocidal, tyrannical, maniacal Hitler that we all know and loathe from actual history. No one's fate is sealed from birth, or God knows before birth, or even for a while after birth, for a long time after birth, for that matter. Baby Hitler, believe it or not, was every bit as innocent as any other baby, any other infant, any other child, any other human being at that early stage of development. Baby Hitler was not predestined to become one of history's most despicable and reprehensible villains. I'm sure there were any number of possibilities, different roads that his life could have taken at different junctures that would have prevented him from playing the role in history that he ended up playing. Hitler's original plan, for example, was to be an artist. After he failed at that effort, he joined the German army, and actually, even after World War I ended, he wanted to stay in the army, but he had to be let go partly because of the forced reduction of the German military that was imposed on the country by the Treaty of Versailles. I've heard at least one historian actually say that, however, ironically, the Treaty of Versailles actually ended up backfiring in the long run because that arguably gave the world Hitler. Because Hitler didn't see any other career path, or partly for that reason at least, he decided to go into politics, and we all know how that turned out. To my way of thinking, that factor by itself is actually enough to dispose of the whole issue. We don't live in a minority report kind of world where a person's destiny is set in stone and can be foreseen, and it would therefore be just or reasonable to determine the way we're going to treat that person based on that supposed destiny. That's not a real thing in real life. The future is not set. Hitler, when he was a baby, and certainly before he was born, wasn't guaranteed to turn out the way that he did. Some other analyses, such as at The Atlantic, which is one of my favorite publications, go into a lot of the historical dimension of the issue. One author at The Atlantic, Matt Ford, has made, I think, a pretty interesting historical case against killing baby Hitler. He says, look, Hitler, and I'm quoting here, Hitler did not invent fascism, militarism, or anti-Semitism. Although he proved to be remarkably adept at harnessing them for political power, he was also not the first German political figure to adopt the irredentist position that another country's territory rightfully belonged to the German people. Mr. Ford goes on to say a lot of what Hitler did might have happened otherwise. I actually don't think that the Holocaust and the Second World War as we know it would have happened without Hitler. I think that history is the product of the actions of certain great men or women, individuals who are exceptional, for better or worse, and who single-handedly changed the course of human history. I think Hitler is an excellent example of that phenomenon. But at the same time, there are also broader trends that have a lot to do with the impact that these people have as well. So it's true that fascism, militarism, imperialism, anti-Semitism, and racism were prevalent in Germany and Europe at large when Hitler came on the scene. But I think it took his unique brand of ambition, charisma, and just plain, well, actually, I hesitate to call him insane because that risks actually letting him off the moral hook by suggesting that he wasn't entirely morally responsible for his evil deeds. I'm always very leery of medicalizing people's character flaws. So, although I was about to call him insane, I thought better of it just now. I don't think that exactly the Second World War and the Holocaust as we know them would have occurred without Hitler becoming who he was. and taken the path that his life took. Mr. Ford at The Atlantic also points out that the dark clouds of the Second World War and the Holocaust had certain silver linings. Because of the horrors of the Holocaust, the Western world woke up to the evils of anti-Semitism and racism and imperialism perhaps more quickly and sooner than it otherwise would have done. What's more, the war weakened some notable European colonial empires, most notably the French and British empires. Who knows how much longer European colonialism might have lasted if it weren't for the Second World War. As the child of two former British colonial subjects, that's a big deal to me. But then again, the fact remains, even though a dark cloud may have a silver lining, the cloud itself is still pretty dark. And few clouds are darker than World War II and the Holocaust. Certain positive externalities may have resulted from the war, definitely resulted from the war, in fact, but I don't know. If I could have done something that definitely would have avoided the war, maybe it would have been worth doing, even if it would have risked not elevating the United States to a leadership role in world affairs, not speeding up the demise of the European colonial empires, that sort of thing. But of course, at the end of the day, we're talking about taking an innocent human life. And yes, when he was a baby, Hitler was still just that, an innocent human life. Hitler was not guaranteed to be that monster. He wasn't. Any number of things could have gone differently during his early childhood years or his later childhood years that may have prevented him from becoming the person that he became, or even if he had still been as evil, racist, anti-Semitic, and bloodthirsty as he turned out to be, he may not have been able to get into the position of power that enabled him to do his dastardly deeds. That factor by itself is enough to answer this question. No, it won't do to kill baby Hitler.